Time for another crappy video from me. This one is a little bit mind bendy, but that's how I roll sometimes. So welcome to a bird's eye view of the universe. With CERN firing up, there are some concerns about things called the Mandela Effect. This is where we remember things differently than they actually are. Some find it rather spooky, but I think it's fascinating. I do like the word spooky, though, because Albert Einstein famously described quantum entanglement as spooky action at a distance. And that's what all of this is. It's quantum theory, basically. So, not only is the universe stranger than we imagine, it is stranger than we can imagine. That's what we're trying to define with these experiments at CERN and with the idea behind theoretical physics or quantum physics. Fair warning, while I'm not at all religious, I do consider myself to be somewhat spiritual. What follows is my own theory of how the universe may work, at least in part. Now, what does this have to do with quantum physics? The last time CERN was fired up, they found the quote God particle. So, technically or theoretically, I think that they sort of go along together. So, first, I believe that we are not human beings having a spiritual experience, but are spiritual beings having a human experience. We tend to project our feelings outward and are affected by how others are feeling. This is before anybody even really says a word. The more people that gather together feeling a particular way, like for a concert or a sporting events, the bigger the feeling. Sports stars and performers experience a sort of high from this. In these cases, the feelings are generally positive. But the opposite is also true. This is how mobs form, why there's riots, and even wars. You know how you can feel a bit skeeved out when people encroach upon your personal space? I believe that's because we're not fully contained within our physical bodies. Getting a little deeper, one of the theories of physics is that we live in a multiverse. This theme has been explored in many books, TV shows, and movies. The theory is that every time we make a decision, there is some sort of split, where in one universe we chose differently than what we did in the one we're currently experiencing. If that's true, there are more universes than we could ever possibly calculate. When CERN fires up the super collider, we seem to jump timelines, resulting in Mandela effects, where there is evidence that things that we remember aren't what actually happened. Or we may sort of remember both. For example, I remember Nelson Mandela both being imprisoned and then dying in prison and being released and going on to become the president of South Africa. And the latter is what is actually true, at least in this timeline. And so that's where the name for the Mandela Effect comes from. So, here is my theory. I believe our spirit follows each timeline we create, and that they may converge and split at various times over the course of our life. Depend on how closely they are aligned to the one we are fully living in, this may be a reason why our memories change over time. And you get the fact that what we remember may be very different than what somebody else does. As a little side note, have you ever experienced deja vu? There's nothing that says alternate timelines run exactly concurrently with the one we're currently experiencing. So perhaps in another timeline we experience something and then we experience it in our own timeline again, and there's kind of a bleed through, and that's where deja vu comes from. And that's because linear time is a man-made construct to keep things in order. I mean, it's much easier to have a history that we can study and learn from if things are kept in a linear order. Our spirits may just be big enough to play in all sorts of times and places. I think this may also explain how we can meet someone for the first time and yet feel we already know them. This is why I find the Mandela Effect more fascinating than scary. If we do indeed jump timelines, we're not truly losing anything. It's just reality shifting a bit. Our spirits may well be experiencing the universe more fully than we can while we're stuck in our human bodies. And I believe sometimes we may few glimpses of these other timelines in our dreams. Instead of being, I'll put it this way, we tend to worry, we have regrets of the future, we may want to live, not regrets of the future, regrets of the past. We may want to live in a something in the past that was where things went well for us, and we kind of wish we were back there. And other times we can project into the future with our worries or with daydreams. And there's nothing wrong with daydreams or even imagination. That's basically what I use to form this whole little theory that I'm sharing with you right now. However, in all universes, the only time we really have is right now. And if I'm right, the now is much more than we ever realized. Thanks so much for watching. Much peace and love to you all.